What the hell you think you're doing here, boy? Those words were spoken to an FBI assistant director, standing in his own driveway. What happened next became the largest police reform case in American history. Officer Ryan Mitchell's boots crunched on the pristine sidewalk of Oakwood Heights' wealthiest enclave. He spotted the black man in an expensive suit, and his face twisted with disgust. What the fuck you think you're doing here, boy? Mitchell's voice cut through the morning silence like a whip. The man turned. Officer, shut your mouth. Mitchell grabbed the man's wrist, twisting it to examine his watch. Is this Rolex stolen? Are you breaking into these houses? He shoved the man backward. Turn around. Hands behind your back. Now. Officer, please. Mitchell slammed him against a luxury car, the metallic thud echoing down the street. I said turn around, you piece of shit. You don't belong here. The man's expensive suit wrinkled against the hood, his calm voice barely containing rage. I live in this house. Mitchell laughed cruelly. Sure you do. And I'm Barack fucking Obama. Have you ever witnessed such raw, humiliating hatred directed at someone simply for existing? 9:47 a.m. 13 minutes until the call. Michael Brown felt the cold metal of his BMW's hood against his chest. 23 years of federal service, and he was being treated like a common criminal on his own property. ID now. Mitchell's breath reeked of stale coffee and contempt. Michael slowly reached for his wallet, movements deliberate. Any sudden gesture could escalate this beyond repair. His fingers found the leather billfold, Italian crafted, a gift from his wife, Nicole, after his last promotion. Mitchell snatched it, flipping through contents like he was searching for contraband. Michael Brown, he read mockingly. What kind of made-up name is that? It's my name, officer. Fuck it. Mitchell held up the Federal Credit Union Platinum card, studying it with suspicion. Where'd you steal this from? This is government issued. Across the street, Mrs. Anderson's live stream was gaining traction. Notification sounds pinged from her phone as the viewer count climbed. Y'all, she whispered into the camera. This is absolutely disgusting. He lives here. I've seen him every morning for 3 years. The comments section exploded. Call the FBI. This is 2026, not 1955. Sue them for everything. But darker voices emerged from anonymous accounts. He looks suspicious to me. Probably casing the neighborhood. These people don't belong here. Mitchell's radio crackled. Unit 47 requesting backup on Maple Drive. Copy that, 47. Uni 23 en route. Michael's phone buzzed. The caller ID read, Director Williams, FBI. He declined the call, checking his Omega Seamaster. The Federal Credit Union card wasn't the only thing Mitchell had missed. The small eagle insignia on his lapel, barely visible unless you knew what to look for, caught the morning sunlight. You got a permit for this neighborhood, boy? Mitchell shoved the wallet back at him. Rich folks around here pay good money to keep your kind out. Officer Mitchell. Michael read the nameplate with deliberate clarity. I'm going to ask you to step back. You'll ask me? Mitchell's hand moved to his taser. You're giving me orders now? The sound of another patrol car approaching made Michael's jaw tighten. This was escalating exactly as his civil rights training had predicted it would. Multiple officers, residential setting, no immediate witnesses except social media. Officer Lisa Harper stepped out of the second cruiser, immediately sizing up the scene. Mitchell waved her over with obvious relief. Got a suspicious individual here, Harper. Claims he lives in the Morrison house. Harper looked at the imposing colonial behind them, easily worth $2 million. Then back at Michael. Her expression said everything. Do you have any documentation proving residence? Harper asked, her tone more professional but equally skeptical. Michael reached slowly into his jacket pocket. Both officers tensed, hands moving toward weapons. He produced a set of keys, the BMW's distinctive fob prominent among them. House keys, car keys, mailbox key. Mitchell grabbed them, examining each one. Could have made copies. Could have stolen the car. Mrs. Anderson's voice carried across the street. Officers, he's lived here for 3 years. His name is on the mailbox. Ma'am, please step back from the situation, Harper called out. We're conducting an investigation. Investigation into what? Mrs. Anderson shot back, still filming. A man standing in his own driveway? 9:52 a.m., 8 minutes remaining. Michael's phone buzzed again. Same caller, same decline. But this time he allowed himself the faintest smile. Mitchell was too focused on the keys to notice. What's funny, boy? His voice was getting louder, more aggressive. You think this is some kind of joke? No, officer. I think this is exactly what I expected. The comment hit Mitchell wrong. Expected? Are you saying you planned this? More neighbors were emerging. The Hendersons from next door, drawn by the commotion. Mrs. Patterson walking her poodle, stopping to stare. The Wilson twins on their morning jog, slowing to watch. Some looked concerned. Others looked satisfied, like they'd been waiting for exactly this moment. Sandra Thompson appeared from her corner house, her HOA coordinator badge prominent on her jogging outfit. She'd been the one person who'd never welcomed Michael to the neighborhood. Officers, Sandra approached with obvious authority. We've had several break-ins lately. Better safe than sorry. Harper nodded appreciatively. See, the community is concerned about security. I've lived here since 2022, Michael said quietly. I've never met with any HOA coordinator. Because you're not supposed to be here, Sandra replied coldly. This neighborhood has standards. The live stream was viral now. 2,847 viewers and climbing. Local news outlets were picking up the feed. Dana Williams from Channel 7 was already en route. Mrs. Anderson had sent her the link directly. Hashtags began trending. Hashtag Oakwood Heights. Hashtag racial profiling. Hashtag justice for Michael. Hashtag Blacktail stories. But Michael wasn't watching social media. He was watching his Omega counting down. The small encrypted message indicator blinked once, twice. His federal contact was getting impatient. You know what? Mitchell stepped closer, invading personal space. I think we need to take a ride downtown. Let the detectives sort this out. On what charge? Trespassing, public disturbance, failure to comply with lawful orders. Michael looked directly into Mitchell's eyes. Officer, I strongly recommend you wait. Wait for what, smart guy? You'll see. 9:56 a.m. For minutes remaining. The handcuffs clicked into place. The steel handcuffs bit into Michael's wrists as Mitchell forced him against the patrol car. The expensive fabric of his suit jacket scraped against rough metal, but his expression remained unervingly calm. You have the right to remain silent, Mitchell began, his voice dripping with satisfaction. Officer Mitchell. Michael's voice cut through the Miranda rights. Badge number 4471. I want you to remember that number. Mitchell paused mid-sentence. What did you say? Your badge number. 4471. I want you to remember it. Something in Michael's tone made Mitchell's confidence waver for just a moment. Then anger flared. You threatening me, boy? I'm simply asking you to remember your badge number. 9:58 a.m. 2 minutes remaining. The third patrol car arrived with Sergeant Davis behind the wheel. His 15 years of experience showed in the way he immediately assessed the scene. Handcuffed black man, 2 officers, growing crowd, phones recording everywhere. What have we got? Davis approached with cautious authority. Trespassing suspect, Harper reported. Claims he lives in the Morrison house. Davis looked at the imposing colonial, then at Michael's obviously expensive attire. Something didn't add up, but protocol was protocol. Any ID? Mitchell held up the wallet. Says Michael Brown. Probably fake. The Federal Credit Union card too. Davis examined it more closely than Mitchell had. These are hard to counterfeit. Probably stolen, Sandra Thompson interjected, stepping closer to the officers. I'm the HOA coordinator. I know everyone who belongs here. Mrs. Anderson's live stream had exploded. The viewer count hit 8,000 and was climbing exponentially. Her comment section was a war zone. This is disgusting. Where are the civil rights lawyers? Someone call the FBI. Racist cops need to be fired. But anonymous accounts pushed back. Good police work. Keep the neighborhood safe. He doesn't belong there. Local news vans were already dispatched. Dana Williams from Channel 7 was 5 minutes out. 2 other stations had picked up the feed. Davis studied Michael more carefully. The man's composure was unusual. Not the nervous energy of someone caught in wrongdoing. Not the anger of someone falsely accused. Something else entirely. Mr. Brown, can you provide proof of residence? The keys your officer confiscated open my front door, my car, and my mailbox, Michael replied evenly. Mrs. Anderson across the street can verify I've lived here for 3 years. Keys can be copied, Mitchell insisted. Cars can be stolen. Davis wasn't convinced, but the crowd was growing larger and more restless. The Hendersons were openly filming now. Mrs. Patterson had called her husband. The Wilson twins had stopped jogging entirely. Look, Davis said, trying to de-escalate. Let's just verify the residence, Anne. No. Mitchell stepped forward aggressively. I'm not playing games with this. He's trespassing. He's been uncooperative, and now he's making threats. What threats? Davis asked. Told me to remember my badge number. That's intimidation. Michael's phone rang again, the third time. Director Williams, FBI, glowed on the screen for everyone to see. Mitchell grabbed the phone. Drug dealer calling? Your parole officer, maybe? He answered mockingly. Hello, this is Officer Mitchell. Your boy Michael is under arrest. The voice on the other end was sharp, authoritative. Excuse me? I said your buddy's under arrest. You want to post bail? Call the station. Officer, this is FBI Director Williams. I need to speak with Agent Brown immediately. Mitchell's grin faltered. FBI? Yeah, right. And I'm the president. Davis stepped closer, alarm bells going off. Mitchell, hang up the phone. But Mitchell was committed now. Listen here, whoever you are, this is a police matter. Your friend is going downtown. Agent Brown is a federal officer. I'm ordering you to release him immediately. Agent, Mitchell laughed harshly. This guy, he's a criminal. The line went dead. 9:59 a.m. 1 minute remaining. The silence that followed was deafening. Davis stared at Mitchell, whose face had gone pale. Harper looked between her partners, suddenly uncertain. What if that was real? Harper whispered. It wasn't, Mitchell insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. It's some kind of setup. Mrs. Anderson's live stream had reached 15,000 viewers. The comments were flying so fast they were unreadable. 3 news vans were now visible in the distance. Michael remained perfectly still against the patrol car, but his eyes found his watch. The small display showed an encrypted message. Federal response authorized. Officers. Michael spoke quietly, but his voice carried unmistakable authority. I'm going to give you one more opportunity to de-escalate this situation. Shut up, Mitchell snapped, but the confidence was gone. Sandra Thompson stepped forward. Officers, I don't care who he thinks he is. This is a gated community. We have rules. Actually, Mrs. Anderson called out from across the street, her phone still recording. This isn't a gated community, Sandra. And he pays more property taxes than you do. The crowd murmured. More neighbors had emerged, some supportive, others skeptical, all recording. Davis was sweating now. 15 years of experience told him this was going sideways fast. The man's composure, the federal credit card, the phone call. Too many red flags. Mitchell, maybe we should. No. Mitchell's voice cracked slightly. I'm not backing down to some. He caught himself, but the word hung in the air anyway. Michael turned his head slowly, looking directly at Mitchell. Somewhat, officer. The crowd went dead silent. Even the live stream comments paused. You know what you were going to say, Michael continued, his voice deadly calm. Say it. Mitchell's jaw worked, but no words came. 10 a.m. The call. Michael's phone rang for the 4th time. This time, he looked directly at Mitchell. I think you should answer that. Davis reached for the phone, but Mitchell snatched it away. No. I'm handling this. He answered with forced bravado. Mitchell here. Officer Mitchell, this is FBI Director Williams. I'm ordering you to release Agent Brown immediately. I don't care who you think you are. Badge number 4471. Officer Ryan Mitchell, Oakwood Heights Police Department. 12 years of service. 17 complaints filed against you in the past 2 years, 89% involving people of color. Mitchell's face went white. Davis stepped closer, trying to hear. You have exactly 60 seconds to remove those handcuffs, or I'm dispatching federal agents to your location. The line went dead again. Mitchell stared at the phone, his hand trembling slightly. Federal agents, Harper whispered. Davis was already reaching for his radio. Dispatch, this is Unit 12. I need to speak with Chief Henderson immediately. But it was too late. In the distance, black SUVs were already visible, moving fast toward Maple Drive. Michael finally smiled. Revelation. The black SUVs moved through Oakwood Heights like sharks cutting through still water. 3 vehicles, tinted windows, federal plates. They stopped in perfect formation at the end of Maple Drive. Mitchell stared at them, his mouth dry. Those can't be. Federal agents, Davis finished grimly. His radio crackled with dispatcher confusion. Chief Henderson was en route, but these SUVs had arrived first. Michael remained motionless against the patrol car, handcuffs still tight around his wrists, but his demeanor had shifted. The quiet composure was now something else. the stillness of a predator who knows the trap is about to spring. Officer Mitchell, Michael spoke without turning around. I'd like you to look at my lapel pin again. Mitchell's eyes dropped to the small eagle insignia he'd ignored earlier. The morning light caught the detailed metalwork. Not costume jewelry, but government-issued sterling silver. What is that? FBI service pin. 23 years. The words hit like a physical blow. Harper stepped backward instinctively. Davis closed his eyes and muttered a prayer. From the lead SUV, a tall black woman emerged. FBI Director Patricia Williams moved with the purposeful stride of someone accustomed to command. Her tailored suit was immaculate, her expression granite. Mrs. Anderson's live stream exploded. 22,000 viewers and climbing. The comment section was pure chaos. Oh my God, he's really FBI. Those cops are so screwed. Lawsuit incoming. Blacktail's stories need to cover this. Behind Williams came 6 more agents, a coordinated unit in dark suits and earpieces. They moved like they'd done this before. Sandra Thompson was backing away slowly, her HOA badge suddenly feeling very small and very meaningless. Agent Brown. Williams's voice carried across the street with crisp authority. Status report. Michael finally turned, the handcuffs forcing an awkward movement. Currently detained by Officer Mitchell, badge number 4471, on suspicion of trespassing. Trespassing on your own property? Apparently. Williams's gaze swept over Mitchell, Harper, and Davis like a blade. Officer Mitchell, I believe we spoke on the phone. Mitchell's voice came out as a croak. You're really FBI. Director Williams, Federal Bureau of Investigation. She produced her credentials with practiced efficiency. Agent Brown is my assistant director for the Civil Rights Division. The words hit the crowd like a thunderclap. Assistant director. Civil Rights Division. Davis was frantically trying to process the magnitude of the mistake. Ma'am, we were responding to a call about suspicious activity. Suspicious activity? Williams's voice could have cut steel. A federal agent standing in his own driveway? Harper found her voice. We didn't know he was. You didn't know because you didn't ask. You saw a black man in an expensive neighborhood and made assumptions. More neighbors had gathered. The Hendersons looked mortified. Mrs. Patterson was openly apologizing to no one in particular. The Wilson twins were live streaming on their own phones now. But Williams wasn't interested in the crowd. Her focus was laser-sharp on Mitchell. Officer Mitchell, how many complaints have been filed against you in the past 24 months? I don't know the exact. 17 complaints. 89% involving people of color. Would you like me to read them aloud? Mitchell's face had gone gray. That's not relevant to. Officer Ryan Mitchell. Badge 4471. April 2023. Excessive force complaint dismissed. June 2023. Racial profiling allegation sustained. August 2023. Inappropriate language, verbal warning. September 2023. Stop. Mitchell's voice cracked. Davis stepped forward. Director Williams, I apologize for this situation. We'll release Agent Brown immediately. But Williams held up a hand. I'm not finished. October 2023. Unlawful detention, settled out of court. November 2023. Please, Mitchell whispered. December 2023. Harassment complaint, dismissed on technicality. January 2024. Why are you doing this? Mitchell's voice broke. Williams stepped closer. Because Agent Brown has been investigating systematic bias in law enforcement for the past 18 months. This interaction is being documented as part of a federal civil rights case study. The silence was deafening. Mrs. Anderson's phone nearly slipped from her hands. She was recording a federal investigation. Case study. Harper managed. Operation Mirror. Williams continued. Agent Brown has been documenting bias patterns across 47 police departments nationwide. Oakwood Heights PD was selected based on complaint ratios and demographic data. Michael spoke quietly. I moved to this neighborhood specifically to test response patterns. Expensive area, predominantly white, history of suspicious person calls. Mitchell stared at him in horror. You set this up? I bought a house and stood in my own driveway. Michael replied calmly. Everything else was your choice. Davis was trying to salvage something from the wreckage. Agent Brown, we apologize for any. Sergeant Davis, Williams interrupted. Your department receives $2.3 million in federal funding annually. Civil rights violations can trigger federal oversight and budget review. The financial implications hit Davis like a freight train. Federal funding paid for equipment, training, half their annual budget. Williams gestured to one of her agents, who approached with bolt cutters. The handcuffs fell away from Michael's wrists with a metallic click. He rubbed circulation back into his hands, straightening his suit jacket. For the first time, he looked like what he was. A federal agent with 23 years of experience and the full weight of the U.S. government behind him. Officer Mitchell. Michael's voice carried new authority. Do you remember what I told you about remembering your badge number? Mitchell nodded mutely. This incident is now federal record. Badge 4471. Officer Ryan Mitchell. Unlawful detention of a federal agent. Civil rights violation. Abuse of authority. The live stream had reached 45,000 viewers. News helicopters were visible in the distance. This wasn't just a neighborhood incident anymore. It was national news. Dana Williams from Channel 7 arrived with her crew, but she was too late for the main event. She began setting up for aftermath interviews. Sandra Thompson tried to slip away unnoticed, but Williams's voice stopped her. Maet Thompson, Huakot Binato. You stated that Agent Brown didn't belong in this neighborhood. Sandra froze. I was mistaken. You were discriminatory. This interaction is also part of the federal record. More agents were arriving. A mobile command unit pulled up. This was becoming a full federal response. Davis keyed his radio. All units stand down. Federal operation in progress. But Chief Henderson was already pulling up in his unmarked vehicle, and his face was the color of old concrete. Williams turned to address the growing crowd and cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, what you've witnessed today is systematic bias in action. Officer Mitchell made assumptions based solely on race and perceived social status. She gestured toward Michael. Agent Brown purchased this home in 2022. He pays $47,000 annually in property taxes. He has lived here without incident for 3 years. The crowd murmured. $47,000 in property taxes meant a house worth well over $2 million. Today's incident will be analyzed as part of a comprehensive study on bias in law enforcement. The data will be presented to Congress next month. Mitchell was sitting in his patrol car now, head in his hands. The magnitude of his career destruction was becoming clear. Harper looked like she wanted to disappear entirely. Davis was calculating how many ways this could destroy the department. But Michael was checking his watch again. The encrypted message display showed, Phase 2 authorized. Williams caught his eye and nodded slightly. However, Williams continued, this incident represents just the beginning of our investigation into Oakwood Heights Police Department. She paused for effect, letting the words sink in. We'll be conducting a comprehensive review of all arrests, complaints, and interactions involving people of color over the past 5 years. Davis felt his knees go weak. Additionally, Agent Brown will be working directly with your department to implement bias training and oversight protocols. Mitchell looked up from his hands. He's going to be working with us. Williams smiled, but it wasn't warm. Agent Brown will be your new consulting supervisor for civil rights compliance. You'll be seeing quite a lot of each other. The irony was perfect. The man Mitchell had humiliated and arrested would now be overseeing his professional conduct. Mrs. Anderson was still filming, tears of satisfaction streaming down her face. The comment section was exploding with celebration and outrage in equal measure. Chief Henderson finally reached the scene, took one look at the federal agents, the cameras, and Mitchell's defeated posture, and understood that his department's reputation had just been shattered on live television. But Williams wasn't finished. There's one more thing, she announced to the crowd and cameras. This entire operation was conducted with full departmental cooperation. Everyone stared at her. Oakwood Heights Police Department volunteered to participate in this study. Chief Henderson signed the agreement last month. The final twist hit like a bomb. Davis stared at his chief in shock and betrayal. Henderson nodded grimly. The department agreed to federal oversight in exchange for avoiding a broader Justice Department investigation. Mitchell's world collapsed entirely. His own department had set him up. Michael stepped forward, addressing the cameras directly. Real-life stories like this happen every day across America. Blacktail stories that never get recorded, never get witnessed, never get justice. His voice carried the weight of 23 years in law enforcement and a lifetime of being judged by his skin color. But today the system worked. Not perfectly, not quickly, but it worked. He looked directly at Mitchell. Officer Mitchell, you have a choice now. You can learn from this, or you can repeat it, but you'll never do it without consequences again. Chief Henderson approached the Federal Command Center like a man walking to his own execution. His 28 years of service, his pension, his reputation. Everything hung in the balance of the next conversation. Director Williams didn't look up from her tablet as he approached. Chief Henderson, thank you for your cooperation in Operation Mirror. Director Williams. Henderson's voice was carefully controlled. I wasn't expecting such a comprehensive response. Agent Brown's detention triggered our emergency protocols. Williams's fingers moved across the tablet screen. Shall we review the data? The mobile command unit had become an impromptu courtroom. Federal agents worked on laptops, processing real-time analysis. Mrs. Anderson's live stream continued from across the street. 68,000 viewers now watching federal agents dismantle a police department's credibility in real time. The comment section was brutal. Oakwood Heights PD getting exposed. This is what justice looks like. Blacktail stories need to cover this daily. FBI coming for racist cops everywhere. Operation Mirror has been documenting bias patterns for 18 months. Williams began. Oakwood Heights PD scored in the 97th percentile for racial disparities in arrests. Henderson's jaw tightened. Those statistics can be misleading. 97%. Williams's voice cut through his protest. Meaning only 3% of departments nationwide show worse bias patterns than yours. She turned the tablet toward him. Charts and graphs filled the screen. Arrest rates by demographics, complaint ratios, use of force statistics. The data painted a devastating picture. Officer Mitchell represents a pattern, not an anomaly. Agent Brown documented 12 similar incidents across your department in the past 6 months. Davis overheard, still reeling from the revelation that his own department had set them up. 12 incidents. Officer Harper, Williams continued, consulting her files, 7 discrimination complaints in 18 months. Officer Torres, 9 complaints. Officer Kim, 4 complaints. Officer Patterson, 6 complaints. Officer Williams, 11 complaints. Each name hit Henderson like a physical blow. His officers weren't just making individual mistakes. They were creating a systematic pattern of institutional discrimination. Agent Sarah Carter, Williams's legal counsel, stepped forward with additional documents. Chief Henderson, we've also documented disparities in traffic stops. Black motorists are 3.7 times more likely to be searched during routine stops. 3.7 times more likely, but contraband discovery rates are 42% lower, another agent added, indicating stops based on racial profiling rather than legitimate suspicion. Henderson felt the walls closing in. Every statistic was another nail in his department's coffin. Michael stepped forward, his federal authority now undeniable. Chief Henderson, let's discuss the financial implications. Henderson's face went pale. Federal funding was everything: equipment, training, technology, half their operating budget. Oakwood Heights PD receives $2.3 million annually in federal grants, Michael continued, reading from his tablet. Civil rights violations can trigger immediate funding suspension under Section 14141 of the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act. Section 14141, Davis whispered to Harper. Harper had gone to law enforcement school. She knew the implications. Federal oversight. They can basically take over the entire department's operation. Michael pulled out his own tablet, numbers flowing across the screen with bureaucratic precision. Community policing grants, $412,000. Drug enforcement funding, $638,000. Equipment modernization, $815,000. Training programs, $327,000. Each number represented jobs, salaries, operations. Without federal money, Oakwood Heights PD would collapse within 3 months. Additionally, Williams added, civil liability exposure from today's incident alone could reach 7 figures. Henderson found his voice. 7 figures? Federal civil rights lawsuits under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 start at $1 million, Agent Carter explained. Agent Brown's case would be prosecuted by the Justice Department Civil Rights Division directly. The crowd was growing exponentially. More news vans arrived every few minutes: CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. This wasn't just local news anymore. The hashtag Oakwood Heights FBI was trending nationally across all social media platforms. Dana Williams was interviewing neighbors live on Channel 7. Mrs. Anderson had become an instant celebrity, her live stream being rebroadcast on major networks nationwide. But inside the command unit, the real power play was just beginning. However, Williams's tone shifted slightly, the first hint of negotiation. There is an alternative path forward. Henderson leaned forward desperately. Any alternative to federal takeover was worth considering. Consent decree. Voluntary compliance with federal oversight and reform protocols. What exactly would that involve? Michael stepped forward again, consulting his comprehensive tablet. Complete restructuring of training protocols. Mandatory bias training for all officers. 40 hours annually, not the current 8 hours every 3 years. Each requirement felt like another nail in the department's independence. Body camera footage reviewed by federal monitors, Agent Carter added. Random sampling of 20% of all interactions, with particular focus on traffic stops and residential calls. External oversight board with community representation, Williams continued. Monthly compliance reports to the Justice Department. Zero tolerance policy for verified discrimination complaints. Davis was calculating rapidly in his head. Zero tolerance meant any substantiated complaint could end a career immediately. The old boys club culture would die overnight. What specifically happens to Officer Mitchell? Henderson asked quietly. Williams looked toward the patrol car where Mitchell sat, his career effectively ended. Officer Mitchell will serve as a case study. His actions today will be analyzed in federal training materials distributed to law enforcement agencies nationwide. The irony was perfect and brutal. Mitchell's racist assumptions would now educate thousands of officers about the consequences of bias. He can remain employed pending completion of 200 hours of bias training and community service, Michael added, in black and brown neighborhoods specifically. Mitchell would spend the next year serving the very communities he discriminated against. The punishment fit the crime with poetic precision. The alternative to voluntary compliance, Williams continued, is federal takeover under Title VI violations. Complete loss of local control, federal management of all operations. Henderson had seen federal takeovers before in other cities. Those departments became shells of themselves, micromanaged by Washington bureaucrats who'd never walked a beat. Financial penalties would include full reimbursement of Operation Mirror costs, Michael added, consulting his tablet again. Approximately $4.7 million over 18 months of investigation. Henderson's knees nearly buckled. $4.7 million would bankrupt the entire city government. Plus, Williams added almost casually, criminal referrals for any officers found to have violated federal civil rights statutes under color of authority. Criminal referrals meant prison time. Mitchell could face federal charges for unlawful detention, civil rights violations, deprivation of rights under color of law. The live stream audience had reached 89,000 viewers. Comments flooded in from across the country. This is how you handle racist cops. FBI don't mess around with civil rights. Justice finally happening in real time. Blacktail stories like this give me hope for America. Real-life stories showing change is possible. But anonymous accounts pushed back aggressively. Government overreach destroying good cops. What happened to due process? FBI targeting hardworking police. Henderson looked at his officers scattered around the scene. Davis sweating profusely, Harper barely holding back tears, Mitchell broken and defeated in his patrol car. 28 years of building this department, and it was crumbling in real time on national television. If we accept the consent decree, Henderson asked slowly, what timeline are we looking at for implementation? Implementation begins immediately, Williams replied without hesitation. Agent Brown will establish a permanent field office here within 30 days. Michael smiled slightly, the first show of satisfaction he'd allowed himself. I'll be your new neighbor permanently, Chief. Living right here in Oakwood Heights, overseeing daily compliance operations. The final twist of the knife. The man Mitchell had tried to remove from the neighborhood would now be running it with federal authority. Federal monitors will conduct quarterly reviews for 5 years minimum, Williams continued. Extensions possible if compliance standards falter. 5 years of federal oversight. Every arrest, every complaint, every interaction scrutinized by Washington bureaucrats. Henderson looked at the cameras, the crowd, the federal agents surrounding his command. His department's dirty laundry was being aired on national television. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. It was surrender or complete destruction. "Chief," Davis whispered urgently, "we have to take the deal. We can't survive a federal takeover." Henderson nodded slowly, swallowing his pride. Pride was a luxury he couldn't afford anymore. "We accept the consent decree." Williams smiled, the first genuine expression of satisfaction she'd shown all day. "Excellent decision. Agent Brown will begin transition planning immediately." She gestured to one of her agents, who approached with legal documents already prepared. The FBI had known how this would end before it began. "Sign here for voluntary compliance. Initial here for federal oversight acceptance. Date here." Each signature felt like surrendering a piece of his department's soul, but Henderson signed anyway. The alternative was complete destruction. The crowd applauded as word spread that the police department had accepted federal oversight. Mrs. Anderson's comment section exploded with celebration. Justice served. This is what accountability looks like. Blacktail stories finally getting the endings they deserve. But the real work was just beginning. 6 months later, the Oakwood Heights Federal Field Office occupied the corner building on Maple Drive, just 3 blocks from where Officer Mitchell had handcuffed Agent Brown. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Michael walked through his new neighborhood each morning, greeting the same neighbors who had witnessed his humiliation. Mrs. Anderson always waved from her window, still proud of her role in changing everything. The numbers told the story of transformation. Racial profiling incidents in Oakwood Heights, down 78%. Officer complaints involving bias, down 84%. Community trust surveys, up 63%. Officer Mitchell had completed his bias training and community service. The man who once saw threats in black faces now coached youth basketball in East Oakwood Heights. His transformation wasn't complete, but it was real. "Agent Brown changed my life," Mitchell admitted during his first public interview. "I was raised with hate, but I don't have to live with it." Michael's promotion to assistant director of the newly created National Bias Prevention Unit came with a mandate: replicate Oakwood Heights nationwide. His marriage to Dr. Nicole Brown, a community activist and researcher, strengthened his resolve. Together, they represented the intellectual approach to social change. Data over drama, strategy over street protests. The Brown Protocol was now studied in police academies across 43 states. His book, Staying Calm in the Storm, an FBI agent's guide to systemic change, became required reading for law enforcement leadership. Mrs. Anderson's live stream had sparked a movement. #DocumentEverything became a rallying cry for civil rights advocates. Her video, now with 12 million views, proved that ordinary citizens with smartphones could trigger federal investigations. The Oakwood Heights model had been implemented in 27 cities. Crime rates remained stable while bias complaints plummeted. The data proved that fair policing was also effective policing. Sandra Thompson had resigned from the HOA board and moved to Florida. The new community leadership reflected Oakwood Heights' actual diversity for the first time. National legislative impact. Congress had passed the Federal Police Accountability Act, directly inspired by Operation Mirror. The legislation required bias training, federal oversight triggers, and community representation in police governance. Senator Maria Rodriguez cited Michael's testimony. "Agent Brown proved that we can achieve justice through documentation and determination, not destruction and division." Standing in his federal office, Michael reflected on that morning 6 months ago. His calm response to Mitchell's racism had triggered the largest police reform movement in decades. The core lesson resonated in every speech he gave. True power comes from preparation, not confrontation. Systemic change requires documentation, allies, and strategic patience. He'd maintained his dignity while achieving collective progress. Exactly what his father had taught him. The young black agents who now worked under Michael saw him as proof that the system could work for justice, not just power. His quiet leadership style inspired a new generation of federal investigators focused on civil rights. Every case they solved added to the growing collection of real-life stories that proved change was possible. "Your story matters," Michael said, looking directly into the camera during his final interview. "Every injustice you witness, every bias you document, every moment you choose courage over comfort, it all adds up." He paused, thinking of Mrs. Anderson and her phone, of the neighbors who spoke up, of the federal agents who responded. Share your experiences with bias in the comments below. Your kind narration stories could be the evidence someone needs for justice. Subscribe to Kind Narrator for more accounts of quiet courage and systemic change. Because touching stories don't have to end with tears. They can end with transformation. And remember, when you see injustice, don't just get angry. Get evidence.